Don't say any F's and stuff.
No investigation. This boy has.
There is not, really? This to me.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
But I have to put her on the side and where
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not, really? This to me.
It's hard, you know, that's real tough.
But I have to put her on the side and where with the boys.
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
Live from the NBD Production Studios, you're in the lab with your host, Joshua Diaz.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not, really? This to me. But I have to put her on the side and where with the boys.
What's up? How's it going?
But I have to.
Tuesday, January
There is no
31st,
investigation.
7:08.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
I got a good show for you.
I have to put her on the side and where about the boys.
And after heavy consideration and discussions with people, I've decided that what we'll do tonight is I will play some audio that I feel is necessary. I feel that it's proper to play. I'm going to do it. And don't get me wrong, it's something that's been heavy on my heart and on my mind. And, last night, Don Wells was on the internet again, giving his same spiel that he always does. And Don, if you're watching tonight, please feel free to call and defend yourself, whatever you want to do. It is what it is. We're going to talk about it, and it's not going to be pleasant. So, like I said, it is what it is. But every now and then, as the pendulum swings from one way to the next, sometimes things need to be calibrated and remembered and not forgotten. So as he's on this show, and I have no problem with this show that he was on. I don't know much about it. God bless him. Whatever. They were very welcoming and inviting when I first showed up in the chat. And then when Don Wells showed up, I was a leper. Okay? I was a leper. And I was no longer acknowledged. And that's fine. I mean, people can run their shows however they want. I understand that. But, it's just, one thing that Donald Wells does is he manipulates. He's very good at it, especially with women. He's always been decent at that, and it sucks. But I was, look, I was completely ignored. Fair enough. I would probably, to be honest with you, I'd probably ignore me too. Because I'm not a big advocate for Dawn. I've had conversations that were, decent enough or whatever, but Dawn Wells said last night, and I'm paraphrasing, but I don't think that paraphrasing is going to matter here. He said that there's nothing more that can be done. He doesn't know what else can be done, but nothing more can be done about Summer, as of to finding her or whatever. Whatever that is. So, and yeah, he can call and use Fs and stuff. I mean, I don't care. He can do whatever he wants. Like I said, I was conflicted about the subject matter for tonight. And then I listened to Don spin his web last night, and it was terrible. And you know what? To be honest with you, the people that kind of fall for his, gag or whatever, gag, blah, whatever he is, the people that fall, I do feel sorry for them because he is very good at playing Mr. Nice Guy and things like that. And maybe somewhere down super, super, super deep, maybe, I don't know. But one thing, but when you say things like, there's nothing more to do, and, my phone was blowing up. People are just going, are you listening to this? And I was like, yeah, I am. And so on and so forth. But, what I'm going to play for you tonight is new audio of a situation that we've all been aware of. It is not something that I take lightly. It's not something that I take pleasure in playing. But I think every now and then a refresher of who we're dealing with is important. What we are dealing with, who we are dealing with, must be remembered. And as I saw a room full of people defend Dawn and attack and, say, whatever, fair enough. Everybody's allowed to believe what they want, who they want, but taking the totality of the situation, okay? Taking the totality of the human and what's been said and what is going to be said, I want everybody to be forewarned. This is the last time I'm going to, mods, if you want, please, this is sensitive subject matter. And, but first, let me play. Let me see. So this is how Dawn right here knows that Candace is innocent. And then after that, then we'll get to the other stuff.
For one thing, I know she's innocent, you know, of everything, and I know how brokenhearted she is. I know how much she loved her daughter. I mean, I'm not protecting her, like trying to cover up for her, but I mean, I can't protect her.
I don't want nobody to protect me.
She's her own person, and I can't
take care of myself.
I can't tell her who she can and can't talk to, just like she can't tell me who the hell I can talk to.
No, I sure ain't going to either.
You tried.
Just like when...
All right. So that's how Dawn knows that Candace is innocent, because he knows how brokenhearted she is. That's how he knows. All right. That's how he knows. All right. This is about a 3-minute clip. I'm going to let it play through, and then we'll break it down. Once again, I caution. Here we go.
I can't get no work around here because...
Oh, and by the way, hold on. Before we do this, one of the things that prompted me to feel okay about doing this is the fact that for the last, I don't know, year and a half, I've personally been attacked. Chris has been attacked. Say that we've messed up the investigation, that we have pulled the attention away from Summer, so on and so forth. And just flat out, I'm just kind of like sick of it. And the same people that did that last night sat up there and kissed Dawn's ass. I'm you know, that, no offense, but come on, you know? I mean, that's, is that what we're here to do? Play grab ass? No. And by the way, Don didn't answer any questions last night. Now, did he? He's answered those same stupid questions that he's always answered. All right, here we go.
I can't get no work around here because of all these people, what they've done to me, you know, specifically, you know, Chris McDonough and Molly Golightly and all them coming out to my job site. I can't get no work around here no more. Nobody wants to use me because, you know, because they turned in, you know, what me and Jeannie did when we were little, you know, whatever, which I know was bad and I know it was wrong and I should have known better, but that little girl was sexually active, but it's not exactly all my damn fault. Maybe I should have known better. I agree with that, but man, I was a kid too, you know, but they're trying to say they use the words and all. We never done nothing besides touch each other. That was it. There was 3 statements. The police called me when I was in jail from Utah. I laughed at them. Then I started yelling at them. After they read me all 3 statements. Mary's was, at first she said, you know, that me and my buddies was chasing her around. We was all playing, and she fell down. I helped pick her up. And I accidentally ripped her shirt a little bit when I was helping to pick her up, you know, trying to help her get off the floor because she fell down. And that's as far as it went, you know. And I told them guys, hey, man, enough. She's down on the floor. She's thinking we're serious, trying to do something to her when we wasn't, you know. And that's exactly what happened. But, so that's what she said at first. And she was all for me at first. And then all of a sudden she done a 180 on me. But in her statement that she signed, she said that we chased her through the house and then we made her take all her clothes off and then we just sit there and looked at her. And that was all her statement was. But there was 3 statements, which was a complete lie, dude. I promise you. We never, oh man. They tried to have me put away, bro. If they could have, they would have. When Summer first disappeared, my dad told everybody that he wanted me to have his house when he died because he wanted us out of Tennessee because he didn't want us here because it wasn't good enough for his grandkids. And that was with his reasoning. And that pissed them off. That's why they come after me like they did. Yeah, there was some sexual misconduct between me and Jeannie, but she was sexually active at a very young age. And I wasn't going around asking for her driver's license or whatever. She wanted to touch me at first. And at first I said no. And I can remember it because it's the first time I've ever even had any kind of sexual experience whatsoever. She wanted to put her hands down my pants, and I said no. And she says, "Oh, I do it all the time with my brothers," or something like that. I can't remember exactly the words. And then I was like, "Oh, well, okay." And then she stuck her hands down my pants, and she was feeling my but I didn't know I was doing wrong, and yeah, I'm guilty of doing the same thing. But I was a teenager. I was young. I've learned a lot since then. Shit, I don't know. But it never went past anything like that.
Right.
And these people want to use the words and all kinds of crazy stuff. All I can say is I'm glad I got in trouble in Houston when I was 16 years old.
So there you go. Unpack that however you want, but please understand that this is the man that people are defending. That he's doing really well. Blah blah blah. So on and so forth. And first of all, there's so much wrong there that I'm not really sure where to start. And it's not important who he's talking to or anything like that. It's not important who he was talking to. The fact of the matter is that he said it, and he has said it. And that is who is being defended by certain people. And I just simply can't abide by that. I'm sure, he's a really nice guy. I mean, for God's sake, she was 5 years old. To say that a 5-year-old girl is sexually active is one of the more demented things that I've heard somebody say. It's very heartbreaking to hear. It's rough to hear. I'm not really proud of bringing it out. But I also just couldn't sit there and listen to, that whole situation, I mean, 5, sexually active. I've never heard of such a thing. And he kind of goes on to say things like, well, I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know it was wrong, or, whatever. So that's who was being defended, and look, man, you like I said, you can defend everyone you want. Defend that, okay? Now, you say, well, what does this have to do with Summer? Well, I would implore to you that Dawn just mentioned that a 5-year-old young girl was sexually active. And at first he said no, but did he really, say no? People, this is Dawn Wells. This is Don Wells. The person that I heard last night isn't Don. Where is the responsibility? Where is the, I mean, let's just be brutally honest here, folks. That is admitting to the sexual assault of a child. That's what that is. I never heard anything like that. I've never heard anything quite like that. Now, I've heard other sound bites and, you know, him saying things like that. You know, he, you know, admitting to, like this one.
Because stepmom calls them and tells them everything.
Is that you said, what was her name?
My stepsister is Jeannie.
Jeannie. And
we did have a relationship when we were younger.
And what was
and she's just as guilty as I am.
So
she's trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes like she's a Miss Innocent and all this and that. Well, she's not.
Walk me through that. Help me understand.
I would rather not, but so we kind of had a relationship when we were younger. Yeah, I was a bit older. I had a dirt bike, you know. I don't know how old I was exactly, but she started dating her cousin, which was about 12 years old at that time. And ever since then, she just wanted me out of the picture. Ever since then. And it started all this hateful stuff ever since then.
And how old were you?
You know, I don't know. Maybe 15, I don't know.
And how old was she?
I don't know. You know, she was a lot younger than me, you know, and I thought this, and I remember thinking this, why would, I didn't think it was right. You know, I was too young to understand how girls are too.
Walk me through that. So when you say you didn't think it was right, what were you guys?
Well, because she was younger. Because she was younger. No, she would play with my thing, and I would play with hers, and that's about it.
Let me see here. Thomas says, better watch out, Josh. He might give you a shout out like he did to Don B when all he speaks is truth. And I know you're being facetious and things like that, but like, I testify against my own father on a daily basis. Like, you think that I give a shit what Don Wells thinks of me? You think I'm scared of him? If I'll do that to my own dad, what do you think I'll do to him? I'm not going to just sit by and let him con everybody into thinking that he's some decent dude when he's not. He's not a good person. Hell, I'm not a good person either, but I ain't ever done anything like that. No. She was 5. She was 5. So defend that. Defend it. You think I care if Don's mad at me? You think I care if Don has a problem with me? As much of a problem as Don might have with me or Chris or Don B, I have a bigger problem with him. And everybody else that defends his crap. How is this defended? In what world is that okay? And we just sit up there and listen to him say things like, well, you know, there's nothing else that we could do for summer. Please, Don, give me a call and help me understand that. What do you mean there's nothing else that we could do? You have to start doing something first, and then maybe somewhere, some way down the line, you go, I'm at my wit's end, but you didn't start. She's a little kid. Jeannie was a little kid, and you terrorized Mary. And why can't it just be, you know what? I made a mistake. You cannot defend that kind of a person. I've never heard such talk. And the fact that he says that there's nothing that he doesn't, there's nothing more to do. One thing that they ask is, well, what can we do, Don, to help? Well, there's nothing you can do. There is nothing you can do, or there's nothing more to do. Why is that? Why is there nothing more you can do? Now, I understand, I show up and I'm listening to this, whatever, and I get it. Like, okay, people think that, first of all, Don's not going to tell any of you anything. Nothing, okay? I understand the thought process behind it. I understand that you may think that you're going to get some answers, but you're not. He's not going to tell you what happened. He's obviously hiding guilty knowledge of some way, shape, or form. I don't, like I said, and I will feel this way forever. I don't know what Don did or didn't do when it comes to Summer. Well, I do know what he didn't do. And the fact that he claims that he searched and, so on and so forth. Well, I don't think so. But okay, that's up to you. Think what you want. All right, fine. But what I just heard Oh, yeah. What I just heard was something I've just... Hold on one second. Hello.
Hey, Josh, how are you doing?
Good, Mr. McDonough. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good, bud. I'm loving. I just heard the tape you played. Good stuff. Real good stuff.
Yeah. It was pretty foul, wasn't it?
Well, it's typical, right? I mean, we've been saying this now since the moment Summer disappeared, and he hasn't lost anything. He hasn't lost, and it's just going to continue to get worse. It's not going to slow down. It's not going to slow down.
So what did you make of that? Like, is that just standard, typical Don?
Well, I don't think it's typical Don as a whole. I think it's typical perpetrator. I mean, I've been studying these guys forever, and he is just, the poster child for deflection and just everything that he's saying and how he says it. And you notice he hasn't missed a beat, and now he's at this place where he's gotten out of jail, and he's right back into, there's nothing I can do about my daughter. Oh, by the way, let me deflect some of the other stuff that was out there and tell you, my side of the story, i.e., a 5-year-old can instigate a sexual relationship with an older male who's at least 7 years older. We know that for a fact. But what he fails to tell us is about the fact that it continued on for over 7 years. And when Jeannie was 12, he was 19. So by that point, he was an adult. And, that's sexual assault, perpetrated upon a minor, which is a major problem. So the other side of this coin is where there's one, there are many. There's been studies that have shown the average pedophile has molested close to 250 to 500 children in their time. So, I'm not saying Don has. I'm just saying that allegedly he molested Jeannie at 5 based on his own admission.
Wait, I was going to say, I don't know if that's alleged anymore, right?
Well, I mean, we just heard him say it, and that's not the first time, right?
Not the first time. No, it's not.
And we just heard him say, which, people were questioning us whether or not the authorities were involved. But we just heard him say they went to visit him in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And we said that a while ago. We can't talk about that. We couldn't talk about it at the time. But
he did.
Yeah, he just put it out there right now, so I can talk about it now.
Yeah.
And yeah, they did. And he was one of the most difficult interviews the detective had. And he called me right after and said, "Hey, you were right." And I said, "Well, just listen to us, how he manipulates the conversation." And so, his own admissions there, the cops came to him. And then what the public doesn't know, which I can tell you now, that he sent his sister down to the police department in Roy, Utah, who is the investigating agency, and to write a statement of alibi about her side of the story and his side of the story. Well, her statement was so damaging to Don that they added it to the case file. And, she said, yeah, he did it. But, again, he was a teenager and she instigated it. So it was a parroted comment to the original confession and admission that even tonight, Don, he hasn't missed a beat. So I don't know where you got that tape, but I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm going, man, that's good stuff. Good for you, Josh. And
I would imagine that this is going to end up in the hands of the district attorney as well.
Well, yeah, and there's a couple of things that are taking place in Weber County. And what we need to do is people need to call the district attorney's office in Weber County and say, pull the trigger. Get on this thing. It's not high profile, right? Like other YouTube channel creators who get arrested almost immediately.
Yeah,
okay?
Right.
And charged. So their argument is always going to be, this happened so long ago, so we have to prove that this was a psychological, there's what they call repressed memories. And the statute in Utah allows testimony of repressed memories from victims to circumvent the statute of limitations. So the holdup has been, Jeannie hasn't gone for a psychological evaluation because, number one, she is still traumatized. And so the DA has been holding in a holding pattern, to show that this was suppressed memory. Okay? And that would be a loophole around the statute of limitations. Okay? But the other piece of the puzzle is, with him now even admitting that, chasing around Mary, which has been her statement from day one, and he even said it in your tape, I just heard it, where, he grabbed her and allegedly he was lifting her up and tore her shirt. Well, Mary's statement's pretty clear that Don and two of his friends chased her and held her down and started taking off all of her clothing, trying to sexually assault her. And she broke free and hid in a bedroom. And so Don's kind of played that off as if, I was trying to help her, where the authorities confronted him with that in jail while he was in jail, in those statements, which he just talked about, which, by the way, just solidifies the credibility that they occurred and the credibility that you and I, present it to the forums here on YouTube. But look, these things happened, whether you believe it or not. They happened.
Mm-hmm.
And Don just again confirmed it in that tape that you just played.
And you know what, Chris, I've told you this, and you and I have had many conversations about this specific subject. And I told you that I'm not done with Don. I've never been done with Don. And what I heard last night enraged me. Because his narcissism and his web of deceit and filth was on display, and people were buying it hook, line, and sinker. And then he goes on to say that there's nothing that they can do. There's no more to do. Which, when I heard that, my stomach sunk. It hurt. It was demoralizing to hear the father of this 5-year-old missing girl, Summer Wells, whose birthday's on Saturday and would be 7 years old, but right now she's encapsulated as a 5-year-old because she's been missing, correct?
Right.
My stomach sank. It was and I'm not going to say who, but I also got reached out to by somebody else that is familiar with these kinds of situations and has had a terrible thing happen. And even this person goes, I can't believe what I just heard. I cannot believe it. And at that point I said, who is this guy trying to fool? And he does a decent job at it. And I couldn't sit on something like that, Chris. I just could not do it.
No, I understand. And with that, you followed your heart. And this is a good thing that you put it out there, because this is not you talking. This is Don. These are his comments, his words. And so he has to justify that with inside of himself. But I think the bigger picture, from an investigative analysis process, looking at this big picture here, you have to look for, correlations here. And the fact that, Jeannie came forward in the very beginning, we need to always remember this piece of the puzzle. Whether or not the district attorney ultimately, puts a set of bracelets on Don is irrelevant to the fact that every behavior has a purpose. And I've said this 1,000 times, right, bud?
Yeah.
And that purpose, then, you have to look at this and go, okay, why does this gentleman, i.e., and I'm not going to call him a gentleman, but why does he say that this happened? All right. He's saying it 40 something years later. Dawn is 58 years old now. So he's saying this years and years later. So that means it's as clear as day to him in his mind. And the reason for that is because sexual fantasy in these types of perpetrators, they fuel themselves with memories, with items of tokens, and these are the kind of things that move them into the next victimology. What Don hasn't talked about are the other victims. The other victims that have also come forward and have also reported to the authorities. This is an enigma to him. He has no insight into what they said. You notice he didn't mention them in this tape. So if he's going to be confessing to molesting Jeannie and Mary, then I would submit to you that he needs to come completely clean and put it all on the table, because there were at least, well, we know for a fact there were 7 women that came forward. 7 women.
Mm.
And so he's only talked about 2 of them. Well, I'd like to hear Don talk about the other 5, okay, and what he did to them, and justify those other 5 or unjustify them. I would submit to you that is a hurdle. It's too high to jump, to pole vault over that bar for him emotionally, because he knows he's guilty, and meaning he did it, right? And so the fact that Jeannie, getting back to real fast, the point of when she came forward, when Trish came forward, and it was Trish who kind of lit the fire here, right? When Trish came forward and said, look, my mom was a victim and she won't really talk about it. And then Mary came out and said, look, my stepbrother did this to me. And then Jeannie got some strength out of that and came out and said, well, I was, victimized for a total of 7 years, right? Once that happened, Don went into, defense. And if you look at what he says about his daughter, there's nothing more that can be done. And look what he says about Jeannie. Okay. Well, she was sexually active at 5 years old, and she touched me. Okay. There's a total correlation there of non-action or responsibility with inside of himself. None of it. Okay. But then he kind of leaks every once in a while information about, well, I knew what was wrong. Okay, if you knew it was wrong, then why do we have 5 other women? Help me understand that. Are you tracking me on that, where I'm with this?
Yes, everything that he said there, in that he contradicted himself constantly, and would say, well, I knew that it was wrong and that there was some misconduct, but I was a kid and she was already sexually active. I've never heard somebody refer to a 5-year-old child as being that, and which is one of the weirdest justifications. But like you said, it didn't. Jeannie clearly states that it didn't stop there with him. And there seems to be just a trail of destruction and victims in his wake.
Well, yes, and if we think about, right, if we think about how long ago this went down, and we now think about the statement that you just played. If he's going back in his head, in his mind, to when she was 5 years old. And then we press forward. Okay, did I lose you?
No, I'm here. No, I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then we press forward to I don't know, when was this statement made, by the way?
About 2 weeks ago.
Okay, about 2 weeks ago, he makes this statement.
Mm-hmm.
So let's think about that for a moment. Okay, from a criminal behavior analysis aspect. Okay, 5 years old, he says, "Yeah, that's wrong." And by the way, but I was young too. And we know what the age range is. It was 7 years. Okay, so she's 5, he's 12, maybe 13, just under 13. Okay. And that abuse and violence to Jeannie, and probably, I would submit to you others, as a matter of fact, I know there are,
mm-hmm.
okay, also within the circle. Okay. For 7 years, that abusive behavior takes place till he's at least 19. Now, he remembers that moment very, very succinctly. Okay. And the trauma of that moment came forward when Tricia stepped forward and said, "My mom was a victim." And then Jeannie said, "Look, the only reason I'm coming forward is because I can't handle this anymore, and I'm saying this because of Summer." Okay. That is the correlation for the motivation of Jeannie to come forward. That strength that it took her to get to that point has been suppressed because of violence, trauma, and all of the other horrible victimization that she experienced. Don went on with his life, and that life reflected 3 prison intakes, right? 3 separate prisons: drugs, alcohol, abuse, verbal, physical, mental, emotional. And then it culminates, it comes to a head when his 5-year-old daughter vanishes in the basement of their house. And his statement to you, or in this tape, is there's nothing else that can be done. Okay? I have always been worried about that shed at the bottom of the hill. I've always been thinking about that shed down at the bottom of the hill. In fact, as you know, I did videos on that shed, and you can play them anytime you want on your channel. You know me, I don't care.
I appreciate
it. It's about Summer. Okay? If that shed, for some reason, is very significant and important to Don Wells, that is the first place he went to,
right,
to look for Summer.
Now, I got an email earlier before I came on the air, and I'm going to read it to you because it kind of correlates into this. And, you know, I haven't verified this, but nothing that's said is super outlandish. And maybe, you know, but it says, "Hey there, I was talking with my husband this evening, and he was telling me about a conversation he had today with one of the searchers that was there when the first scent dogs were brought to the house. I'm not going to say this name. So-and-so works there also, but it wasn't him. This gentleman said they took the dog to the basement door and it followed her scent to the road and sat down. He said they brought in a second dog to see if they got the same result, and it was exactly the same. I asked him if it was down the trail or the driveway, and he said the driveway. It was like she had been handed off. Anyway, I thought I would share this with you anonymously. I always wondered if it was the driveway or the trail, and now I know. I thought I had heard it was the driveway, but wasn't 100% on it."
Okay, so
That kind
right,
of correlates into what your thoughts.
right is why there's an environment here that puts her outside of the basement. All right, and it is not a random situation that, and I'm going to say this, if as long as God keeps me on the earth, I'm going to keep saying this. This is not a random individual that came up on that property and took Summer Wells. Okay? This is somebody who is familiar with that property. They're familiar with that house. Something happened that she either, as we've talked about these different scenarios over the last couple of years here, the different scenarios in relationship to either A, to your point, maybe she was passed off, maybe she was left in the shed, it was a pickup point, and maybe this has been a habit of these two individuals, to leave her there and then people pick her up, bring her back. I don't know. It's there's a lot of theories, there's a lot of speculation. I don't go there. Okay? But what I do know is I talked to people that were on the scene, and they, like many others, have not left that house. Okay? And I've not left that house. And I'm not going to leave that house until I hear or see Don Wells and Candace Wells take action on their own on their property with the law enforcement authorities right next to them. Okay? And say, let me show you exactly what took place. Here's where I remember when I did that interview with Candace. She showed me what took place, but there's a lot of nuances going on there. There's a lot of nuances going on there. From the water hole to the, talking to Miss Robin, talking to, Candace. Okay. Grandma disappears. She's out of the picture. She's in Wisconsin. She hasn't really given a statement other than to defend her statement or her public persona of, hey, we haven't lawyered up. We're still talking to the cops, but TBI has my number. They can call me anytime they want. That was her statement. Okay. Well, why doesn't she call TBI and say, where's my granddaughter? What are you guys doing?
Don said that exact same thing last night, too. TBI knows my number. Yeah, he certainly did.
Well, there you go. All right. I've worked many missing children cases, and I've never had the parent say, hey, you guys can call us. We're not calling you. It's usually the opposite.
Right. Of course. And it should be. It should be the opposite. It's almost like, if you need to get a hold of me for your investigation, we'll do you a favor. You can call me if you want. You have my number. Not that, hey, my daughter's missing and she's been missing, but there's nothing more to do. There's nothing more to do. And when I heard that, I could not, I've heard some good ones from Don. And when I say good ones, I mean dumb ones. That was about as bad as it gets. Nothing more to do.
Yeah, what's going to be interesting though is what they're forgetting is this 5-year-old little girl is vanished, and the authorities, they're not going away. They will not go away. Not with a case like this. It's too high profile. There's too many curveballs. CPS is involved in a lot of different levels. Has anybody bothered to ask? Don's trying to raise money, I hear, and I've been busy on a couple other cases, so I haven't really been able to track it. in totality. I pay attention, obviously, evident of the fact that I'm watching you tonight,
Right.
and then I hear this tape. But has anybody paid attention to the fact that he's raising money to get his boys back? Okay, allegedly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Well,
he keeps saying, yes, he keeps saying that he needs money to hire a lawyer so he can get his kids back. And I don't know if he has done any kind of fundraiser or anything like that. But I saw a lot of people last night very eager to help him if need be. People were advising him to sell part of his land. Just really just odd things. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so weird. Because he blames us for ruining his life. He said that we ruined his life. You, me, Molly, whoever got him fired from his job, and it's all our fault. And then his defenders are like, hey, you know what? They are taking the focus off of Summer, and nothing could be further from the truth. That's all. But to me, this all, like you said, they're two trains, right, Chris? Two trains.
Yep.
And
they're running parallel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, train tracks merge all the time. What's been done in the past can be done in the future. There's nothing new under the sun, so on and so forth. It was just the craziest thing, and like I said, I don't want to blame the people that support him because he does a pretty good job of manipulating. He's pretty good at it, wouldn't you say?
Well, let's see. A 5-year-old instigated sexual contact. I rest my case.
Yeah, and how do you defend? Like, how that was kind of my thing last night. One of the things that he was talking about last night was the Fred Hill. And by the way, I don't get into all those people because I don't know anything about them, and I don't really care. But what he said was, hey, he took off right after Summer went missing. But so did he. The father of the missing girl, Summer Wells.
Yeah, but you remember, though, also his statement is she was abducted. I told them for the very beginning, someone took her. Well, Fred Hill's his neighbor, and he's still living there. So
right.
I'm sure they flushed that out. But more importantly, what I think there's just kind of they're not looking at people. Some folks aren't necessarily looking at the big picture. And the big picture is the state of Tennessee came in to 110 Ben Hill Road and said, "You 3 boys, yeah, you're with us." And they took them wards of the state custody. They took them into protective custody. Protective custody. Again, let me say this. Protective custody. So what we don't know is what they were being protected from. What we do know is they've been there for 18 months, if not longer. So that tells you everything you need to know, that the state has a lot more information that they're not dropping right now on top of Don and Candace. But what is clear as day, anybody who wants to support somebody whose children were taken for protective custody, then you are an enabler and are abusing those children by potentially supporting a position to put them back into a scenario where they will be injured or damaged in some way, mentally, physically, emotionally, or whatever it is. But just understand one thing. The state pointed the fingers through court, in court, at mom and dad. Nobody else. The state didn't point the fingers at the neighbors, across the street, next door, anywhere. They pointed the fingers at the parents and said, the children are out of the house, and they haven't given us the reason why. But what they have said is because they need to be safe. And we're going to put them into a safe environment for their own protection. Now, that should be a light bulb that goes off in the word common sense. Because you and I have done nothing over 18 months to cause the state of Tennessee to take those 3 children. Absolutely nothing. And so this is the idea that it's when you have destructive, abusive behavior, and unfortunately, some people, it's not necessarily, it's their fault because they enable the behavior. But it doesn't make them bad people. It's like living with an alcoholic that is constantly coming back and saying, look, I'm sorry about getting drunk last night and beating you, okay? But I promise I won't do it tonight. And that victim says, okay, all right, I'll give you one more try. I'll give you one more chance. And it's a round robin. It's a constant circle. Okay? It's a manipulating circle. And it happens on social media because, there are people that have been in, and live, quite frankly, in that circle that say to him, oh, Don, we love you. We care about you. How can we help you? Even though they'll listen to a tape like this and say, yeah, it was wrong. I molested her. Yeah, I did it. Well, if your neighbor came to you tomorrow and said, hey, I just want to let you know I molested my 5-year-old stepsister, okay, what would you say? If your neighbor rang your doorbell, what would you say?
I would report that to the cops.
Yeah, but here on social on social media, it's like, well, I don't see them. They're not ringing my doorbell. I'm only hearing it, so it could not necessarily be true. All right, well then, who's lying? Is CPS lying by having the children, or somebody else?
Somebody else. One of the things that he said last night was he talked about how much money was granted to the state of Tennessee for Child Protective Services. And he was talking about it being a business. And I don't know if his numbers were correct or not. But he said, basically that, hey, because, that's why they take kids for monetary reasons. What would you say to something like that if somebody said that to you? I mean, first of all, it's just asinine. But what is that? It's everybody else's fault.
Right. And I've never met a perpetrator, and this is that has ever been so violent to children and to women that have said, hey, I need to tell you, I did it. Okay, I screwed up. and it was my fault. So go ahead and, arrest me. No, it's when they're in custody that they sit in these group settings, and the group psychology and the doctors say, okay, you're going to be the victim. I want to teach you empathy. Okay? And that's how these programs are structured in prison for RSOs and sexual assault, therapy. They actually put the perpetrator, they try to get them to put themselves in the shoes of the victim for them to say, oh, wow, huh, okay. So they will never see that out in the public arena. And you get evidence of that again. I mean, how long ago was that call that I made with Don when he called me and I kept asking him in that call, well, how old was she?
It was probably about 16 months ago.
Yeah, and he kept dodging it, right?
Yeah.
Kept dodging it.
Yeah, he did.
And, I can't tell you, I don't remember exactly how many times I asked him, how old was he? How old was she? And because he knew consciously how old she was, he knew it. And now, today, 16 months later, he's added another little piece to his statement on what you just played, right? And that new piece is, well, I knew it was wrong, and I sexually. I don't want to say it. You're going to have to play it again. But he now admits there's more to the story, but he's still shifting the blame to the victim. In this case, it's Jeannie. The correlation here, again, I always go back to this, and some, people, they hammered me on social media when I first started, which is okay because I knew that I was on track for summer, and we're on track for summer. Okay? And that piece of the puzzle where Don says, well, you ruined my life, and people are mad that you took the limelight off of summer and you put it on me through Jeannie. And you see, that's just typical of somebody saying, well, I don't know how old she was. I'm not sure. But now 16 months later, he does know. Well, yeah, we were both young and this and that, and you're gonna have to play it again.
Here, let me play it. Can I play it a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Play it.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
I can't get no work around here because of all these people, what they've done to me, specifically, Chris McDonough.
You know that guy? Have you heard of him before?
Yeah. And I quite frankly, I wear that statement as a badge of honor.
Amen.
And Molly Golightly and all them coming out to my job site.
And for the record, you never went out to his job site.
I can't get no work around here no more.
No.
Nobody wants to use me because they turned in, what me and Jeannie did when we were little, whatever, which I know was bad and I know it was wrong and I should have known better, but that little girl was sexually active, but it's not exactly all my damn fault.
Okay.
Okay, stop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, you go.
I knew it was wrong. And he gives 3 reasons why he knew it was wrong. But you notice he didn't say in there, and I'm sorry for doing that.
No.
He went right to, but that little girl was sexually active. Okay? That is classic. In therapy, in a prison, the doctor would look at him and say, can you see anything that you would have done was inappropriate? And when we used to interview these guys, and in some of the interviews, I've done many of them, where to get them to move into a position of seeing that they may have some type of empathy within them, we would position them to the idea of, well, what was she wearing? And you would hear comments like, well, if she wasn't wearing her bathing suit, I wouldn't have been tempted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they're not seeing the victim. They're seeing the fantasy of the sexual assault. And so Don is past feeling. He's not able to make an emotional bond with a victim because he's been doing it for so long. And one of the most disturbing stories that I had a chance to talk to the victim, one of Don's victims, was this poor little girl. I'm not going to mention her name, but she has reported and talked to the authorities. When she was 12, he molested her to the point where she wet the bed. Okay? And it was so traumatic for her, even to this day. But Don won't talk about that girl. He will not talk about her. So I don't know, and I'm going to just say this. Don, if you're listening tonight, you've talked about Jeannie. Talk about that girl, because I know you know who I'm talking about. Talk about her. If you're in here in any way, shape, or form, or if you watch this YouTube video, Don, talk about that victim and what it was like to get her so traumatized that she lost control. Help us understand that piece of Don Wells. Help us understand that. Because I've talked to her, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about it. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say people are going to come around you and say, well, that's irrelevant to Summer. Okay? And I would submit to you, it's very relevant to Summer. Because if he had the capacity to do that with inside of his own walls as a child, i.e. 12 to 19, then he's had the capacity to do that as an adult. And in fact, that learned behavior got somewhat honed even better and more. And I will assure you, there are hundreds of victims out there. We just don't know their names yet. Okay? Because if he can't talk about this one, he's certainly not going to tell us about the rest. But I can assure you the district attorney's office in Utah knows who that victim is. So, these are the kind of things that he needs to face. And then he needs to say to whatever happened, whether he is involved or not involved, we don't know. Okay? What we do know is that a 5-year-old under his family care vanished from the basement of their house. And that just doesn't happen. It just does not happen in this country, or quite frankly, in the world, without somebody saying, hey, wait a minute. What were you doing and where were you going? And then all of the inconsistencies, coming up into the conversation about, well, I told them she was abducted. Okay. How do you know that? He's never explained it other than just say it. Okay? But then you have these other statements that says, well, the first place I went was to the shed. Well, why did you go to the shed? What happened? What brought you to the shed and not to the top of the property where your daughter was last seen? Okay. Well, the cops were at the bottom. Well, then we discovered that was a lie, that he beat the cops. Remember?
Yep. Certainly.
He said, well, I got there before the cops. No, you didn't. Okay. So something happened at the top of 110 Ben Hill Road. And the people in this that may know more information are Grandish, Candice, and Don. Whether Don was there, I don't know. Okay, at this point, I really don't. I know Grandish was there, and I know Candice was there. And I know both of them have, Grandma disappears. I mean, she just vanishes, which is problematic. And Candice says she's trying to use one phone to call Don. Okay? That Summer's missing. Well, that phone's not working, so she grabs a second phone to call Dawn, i.e. her mom's phone. When, she's shifting phones to make phone calls. The timeline, how long was she out of your sight? Oh, just a couple of seconds, maybe a couple of minutes. And then, I walked back in where the boys were, and we have various stories about whether they were on the computer playing video games. Which one is it? Were they watching YouTube? I mean, TV. I mean, there's various stories in that. Okay. And then it's like, well, she's down in the basement, Mom. And she goes out to the corner, yells down in the basement, Summer. And I got to be honest with you. When I went in that basement, I've said this, but when I looked down into that dungeon, into that crawl space, I thought to myself, "Holy crap! This is interesting." And when I looked down in the hallway and she's going down backwards, I thought to myself, "Is a 5-year-old just arbitrarily just running up and down these stairs like this? And, does she just go down in this basement to play with her toys? And it's dark down here?" But then you tie that to, if that's where she's sleeping, now you tie that into this idea where Don says, "She slept with me every night. She only wanted to be with me." And you notice one of the last things she remembered was skin-to-skin contact with her. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going down those stairs and looking up and seeing, the TV going off, and it ends up, I guess, people told me it was this Girls Gone Wild stuff and that kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, okay, that's weird in itself. But I think the most significant piece in the basement for me was not only the conditions and how horrible they were, but Candice made a point to turn to me and say, I need to tell you something. And I'm like, okay, what? And she makes a point to say, I don't remember if the door was open or locked. Okay. But I watched her like a hawk. And my experience said, see what she does. And so she opens the door, and we go outside, and she points out the little path where Summer ran. Okay. But I watched her lock the door behind us. She locks the door and closes it.
Mm.
Now, that is a habit. Okay? We're creatures of habit. Now, so her initial statements were the doors were locked. If you listen to the very first statements, that were presented to the public. And yet now all of a sudden people started saying, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then they changed it to, well, it could have been open. Because, see, it didn't make sense for a 5-year-old, to reach up, unlock the door, and then just vanish down the dog path. Because remember, the suspect came up the dog path, according to Don, from the road. But now you've got this email that you just read that says, well, wait a minute, the dogs went down the driveway and lost the scent down there. So the dog path, according to that email, if it's accurate and it's somebody in the know, okay, that the dog path's not even in play.
Right. Exactly. Right? Correct.
So
and that was, he made much to do about that, but if, like you said, if that is correct and they're at the bottom of the driveway, how close would the shed be?
Which one? There was
the one that you have in question.
Well, it's right down to the left of where the door was that she was last seen going into. So it goes down a hill, and you can see it from the road. It's down at the very bottom. So not that one. That's the second shed. That's the other shed on the top of the hill. There were 3 sheds. There was a small shed that the one, Candace, I asked if I could look in. Okay? And that's the one I had Karen watching. And that's to the right of this shed here. So can you zoom to the right, Josh, on this picture that we're seeing?
Let me see here.
Oh, okay. It's scrolling through.
Yeah, it's just kind of a loop. Hold on.
Okay, no problem. Go to Google Earth.
What's that? Is that? No.
Okay, so see where the black little trailer is? There's a shed behind that, right in front of the blue truck, but the blue truck wasn't there at the time when I was there. And then there's a shed to the left, looking at your screen here. That shed, there's that shed. And then there's a shed down at the bottom of that hill behind that one. That's the blue one. That's the shed. That's one of them at the top. And then there's the second one that you just showed.
Uh-huh.
And then there's one down at the bottom of the hill. This one, I asked, this is the one that you're showing there. I wanted to go look inside. And Candace was like, well, that's where Donnie keeps all of his tools. And I don't let even the kids go in there. Okay. So I didn't want to, push any buttons there. I said, oh, that's cool. No problem.
No, I completely understand.
But I wasn't sure if Donnie was still on the property, remember? Because she had called him, or I think she called him. My opinion is from the Dollar General store at the bottom of the hill, because there was a 20-minute gap before we got to the top of the hill here. And I thought she was giving him a heads up, and that's why the stuff was still on down in the basement when I got there.
Like he was just down there watching TV or whatever.
Well, somebody was there. The TV was on, and the kids weren't watching Girls Gone Wild.
Were the kids were gone by the time you were there, right?
Yes,
okay.
Correct.
All right, they were in the. Here, let's listen to a little bit more.
Maybe I should have known better. I agree with that, but
just tell me when to stop, okay?
I was a kid too, but they're trying to say they use the words and all. We never done nothing.
So that's the R word.
Besides touch each other. That was it. There was 3 statements. The police called me when I was in jail from Utah.
Okay, stop. Notice he said 3 statements. Okay? He's not talking about that third one. There's 3 statements, and that third one is the young lady who, lost her she wet the bed. She was so traumatized.
Wow.
And I'd like to hear him say something about that a little bit deeper now that he brought it up, because the authorities asked him about it. You heard him say it.
Yeah.
So let me hear what he said
Laughed at him.
again.
Then I started yelling at him after they read me all 3 statements.
3 statements.
Okay, and he started yelling at them. Remember I said that the detective said it was one of the most difficult interviews he's gone into?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, and so he says, I laughed at him, and then I started yelling at them.
Yeah, that's always the right behavior to an investigator investigating multiple sexual assaults allegations against you, is to start laughing at them and screaming at them, yelling at them.
Right.
Okay. If you're ever going to go to the top of the list, that's the way you begin.
Yeah. He does a lot of things right.
He was, at first she said, that me and my buddies was chasing her around. We was all playing, and she fell down. I helped.
By the way, I want to say for the record, I reached out to Mary and told her, because she was in here earlier, and I asked her if it was okay. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't want to spring anything on anybody.
Pick her up, and I accidentally ripped her shirt a little bit when I was helping to pick her up. Trying to help her get off the floor because she fell down, and that's as far as it went.
So
and I told them guys.
So it sounds like she was running away.
Yeah, that's exact. Have you ever helped somebody up and accidentally rip their shirt?
Well, yeah, no, I don't know, but she's being chased. He forgets that part. He forgets to say, we were chasing her because we were trying to hold her down and rape her. And actually, he says it, right? Or he said it, but you bleeped it out. I'm sorry.
Yes, I did. That's all right.
My bad.
No, I just do it because I don't do it for any like channel monetization reasons, because I don't.
No, I understand.
I don't care about that. I just do it because, it's a kind of a nasty word, and the way that he uses it, it's pretty demonstrative. Like he's like, I never did that.
So let's look at this very, very succinctly and with minutiae eyes here for a moment. Okay. She's running. And notice he says, well, at first she said. And so what he's doing is he is creating a narrative to a statement given to him by the investigator. That's his MO. Okay. And so he says, well, she was running. Go back and play that real fast again, and then stop at this point again, if you don't mind.
And hold on 1 second here. Hold on, let me bring it up somewhere else, because I just have it on.
Sure. No, that's all right. That's okay. If you can't go back,
I'm sure I can.
And while he's doing that, everybody hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the lab here.
Thank you.
It's good work from Josh here on this thing. Hit that subscribe button. Let's get him to 100,000 this year. That's the goal.
Yes, it is. Yeah, maybe I can't. I just have to play it all the way through. So let me see.
I can't get no work around here because of all these people, what they've done to me. Specifically, Chris McDonough and Molly Golightly and all them coming out to my job site. I can't get no work around here no more. Nobody wants to use me because they turned they turned in, you know, what me and Jeannie did when we were little, you know, whatever, which I know was bad and I know it was wrong and I should have known better, but that little girl was sexually active. It's not exactly all my damn fault. Maybe I should have known better. I agree with that, but man, I was a kid too, you know, but they're trying to say, they use the words and all. We never done nothing besides touch each other. That was it. There was 3 statements. The police called me when I was in jail from Utah. I laughed at them. Then I started yelling at them. After they read me all 3 statements. Mary's was, at first she said, you know, that me and my buddies was chasing her around. We was all playing, and she fell down. I helped pick her up. And I accidentally ripped her shirt a little bit when I was helping to pick her up, you know, trying to help her get off the floor because she fell down.
Let's stop.
Yep.
Let's stop.
Yep.
Okay. Look how he framed that. At first she said, Mary said, me and my buddies were chasing her and she fell down. Okay. So he's presenting that as if it's not truthful. But then he follows it up immediately with a justification. If she did fall down, he helped her up and tore her shirt while getting her up. So either A, she did fall down while being chased, or B, she somehow ended on the ground and Don just showed up and picked her up off of the ground. I would submit to you it's the first piece of that statement. That Mary's statement is clear, okay? That she was running away from these guys and they ended up catching her and holding her down. And, you know, she's made many statements about this. And in fact, you heard him just say that the authorities read him her statement. So that's all true. Because the police are the one while he's in jail, talking to him in jail saying, hey, wait a minute. This is what the victim says. And notice she is a victim in the law enforcement's eyes. The fact that they're reading this statement shows that she is a victim and that they took this investigation very seriously and that he was the focus of either the person of interest and or the suspect attacking Mary. And how does he respond? Well, they laughed at her. He laughed at him. Okay.
Then
I laughed at him. And I yelled at him. Okay. So, and then what does he do? He prefaced it with blame. And who did he blame? Other people other than Dawn. And then what did he do? He justified in his own mind, not necessarily what is the truth, in his own mind, which these perpetrators do like this, that, oh, well, I'm just going to lessen this. And then what does he do again? He blames Jeannie. He goes right back into his MO and blames Jeannie. Listen.
I can't get no work around here
fast forward here.
Because of all these people, what they've done to me, you know, specifically, you know, Chris McDonough and Molly Golightly and all them coming out to my job site. I can't get no work around here no more. Nobody wants to use me because, you know, because they turned in, you know, what me and Jeannie did when we were little, you know, whatever, which I know was bad and I know it was wrong and I should have known better, but that little girl was sexually active. It's not exactly all my damn fault.
Stop. Okay? Stop. So here you just heard him said what me and Jeannie did. Okay? And then he goes to say, I knew it was wrong, and he goes into this whole, you know, I'm telling you, I knew it was wrong, blah, blah, blah. But then what does he do? Again, he shifts it right back into the victim and blame the victim. You see here, Don, in the first part of losing, nobody will hire him, okay? He blames me, he blames other people, which, by the way, I didn't even go to his job. I could care less about Don's, work environment.
Right.
Okay.
Of course not.
I don't have time to go to his job, to be honest with you. So but maybe others did. I didn't. But that
Some
said,
did, yeah, for sure.
okay, but look how fast he glossed over Mary's statement. Look how quick he went past that. Okay? And then he went right into his talk track about Jeannie. And his talk track about Jeannie is, we were both young. She was younger, i.e. sexually active at 5 years old. Okay? Are you serious? Right? I mean, I have 5 grandchildren. And if somebody says to me, hey, I need to tell you about 5-year-olds who are doing this or doing that, I'd be going, you know what? Let's sit down. Let's talk for a minute. What are you talking about? And then if they told me something, I'm picking up the phone and I'm saying, hey, blah, blah, blah. You need to look at this guy because this guy's a predator, sexual predator. Okay. But here he just throws it out on YouTube that he's admitting to being a sexual predator of a 5-year-old and blaming her on YouTube. This is crazy. Keep going. I'm
Sure.
I'm loving what I'm hearing here, to be honest with you.
I should have known better. I agree with that. But, man, I was a kid, too, but they're trying to say they use the words and all. We never done nothing besides touch each other. That was it. There was 3 statements.
Okay, stop. So he uses those big words, the R word, okay? But guess who used those words to him? The authorities. See, he forgot to say, he says, they're trying to say. He's not talking about the victims. He's talking about law enforcement reading the statements to him while he's locked up. And all he's doing is denying it. But he's partially admitting that it occurred because he says in this statement, I knew it was wrong, blah, 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 and he goes down that talk track. Okay? So he's basically confessing to what the authorities were asking him. Okay. Go ahead.
The police called me when I was in jail from Utah. I laughed at them. Then I started yelling at them after they read me all 3 statements. Mary's was, at first she said, that me and my buddies was chasing her around. We was all playing, and she fell down. I helped pick her up. And I accidentally ripped her shirt a little bit when I was helping to pick her up, trying to help her get off the floor because she fell down. And that's as far as it went, And I told them guys, hey, man, enough. She's down on the floor. She's thinking we're serious, trying to do something to her when we wasn't, And that's exactly what happened. But
Thinking we were serious.
Yeah, she's down on the floor. That he just corroborated everything Mary said. He forgot the part where she broke free and her clothing was torn and she ran into her parents' room and locked the door and they couldn't get in to get her. And by the way, one of the 3 suspects, they weren't able to find him yet, but they found the other guy. So Don better cross his fingers. That guy doesn't say something about Don Wells.
Exactly.
And if you're listening, Don, you better pay attention to that piece of the puzzle. That investigation's, it's real. You evident of the fact that you talked to them. Okay, go ahead.
And that's what she said at first. And she was all for me at first. And then all of a sudden she done a 180 on me. But in her statement that she signed, she said that we chased her through the house and then we made her take all her clothes off and then we just sit there and looked at her. And that was all her statement was. But there was 3 statements, which was a complete lie, dude. I promise you. We never, They tried to have me put away, bro. If they could have, they would have. When Summer first disappeared, my dad told everybody that he wanted me to have his house when he died because he wanted us out of Tennessee because he didn't want us here because it wasn't good enough for his grandkids. And that
Okay,
was what
stop. So you see where he took Summer's disappearance? He attached the sexual assault to a financial gain. The motivation for them reporting the sexual assault that he just admitted he committed, he then twisted into Summer's disappearance as, well, the reason they're really doing this is they want me in jail so they can take the house. He didn't mention Summer disappearing from that house in any way, shape, or form. What he just did is shifted the conversation very subtly into a financial motive. Not the fact that your daughter just disappeared from the basement of your home. Okay? I hate that mattress, by the way.
I do
but
too. I do too.
But that mattress, I mean, I don't know if that was the same one in the inside of the house at the time, but it was a dungeon. It was a dungeon for sure.
No question.
reason, and that pissed them off. That's why they come after me like they did. Yeah, there was some sexual misconduct between me and Jeannie.
Bam.
Okay, stop. Does it get any clearer than that, everybody?
Absolutely not. And to all you defenders of Dawn, she was 5 years old. 5 years old. How can you defend that? And I don't care if this happened in 1776. There was a big age gap. A huge age gap. And I just cannot believe that there are people that stick up for that.
Well, let them bathe inside of their own problem. Okay, if they want to defend whatever they want to defend, that's up to them. Okay, but here's the difference. Okay, they're the 1%, 99% of people, the good people, catch this quickly. Okay, that 1% does not dictate the outcome of Summer Moon Wells. Okay, because I can tell you there are people right now sending love letters to Brian Kohlberger in jail. These are the same people sending love letters to Dawn. Okay, so we just let them be whoever they want to be. That's up to them. We care less.
I agree.
One of the things, go ahead. One of the things they can't deny is the fact that he just admitted again to sexual assault. Okay,
of a child.
Of a child, and if they're good with that, then they need to do a little soul searching.
And by the way, a lot of these people are the same ones that condemned, somebody else that had a similar situation, a blast from the past, if you will. A lot of there is no difference here, folks. There's no difference here. There's no difference.
Okay, keep going.
She was sexually active at a very young age. And I wasn't going around asking for her driver's license or whatever. She wanted to touch.
Stop.
I wasn't going around asking for her driver's license or whatever. But I've heard people say that before. It's disgusting. It's like R. Kelly.
So let's think about this, right? She was sexually active at a very young age. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So my first question to Don Wells and anybody defending him, okay, how does he know that?
I don't know.
Yeah. How does he know she's sexually active at a very young age?
Well, I think it's because he says that, well, my brothers, I do it with my brothers or something like that.
Okay. But, okay, so then is he saying that her brothers told him this? Is that what he's saying?
I don't know. We can hear it here. And by the way, that driver's license comment, it was just absolutely sickening, by the way.
Well, yeah, 5 years old, right? Every 5-year-old has a driver's license. All right.
Me.
So
at first. And at first I said no. And I can remember it.
At first he said no.
And he can remember it. You see, that's part of the fantasy. All right. So he is, what he's telling us here is this 5-year-old says to him, hey, do you want to be sexually active with me? And he goes, no. But then something happened, according to this statement and confession that he's giving here. Go ahead.
Because it's the first time I've ever even had any kind of sexual experience whatsoever. She wanted to put her hands on.
Stop. First time he ever had a sexual experience, but he knows this 5-year-old is sexually active. It doesn't make sense. Either he didn't know she was sexually active, and this is the first time he's ever had a sexual experience, but this 5-year-old apparently has had multiple sexual experiences, and she's going to teach him what a sexual experience is. That's what he's saying here. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so I said no. And she says, oh, I do it all the time with my brothers or something like that. I can't remember.
Which would be Mary and Jeannie's brothers. So right there,
right.
He's passing the blame on to them.
He's positioning Jeannie as the teacher of sexual activity at 5 years old. That's what he's doing here. He is 12 years old, and he's positioning the victim as the instructor on what to do. I would submit to you, 5-year-olds are still wearing capes and princess dresses and talking to, fantasy clowns. They're not saying, hey, let me show you about, or let me educate you on how this stuff works. Because a 5-year-old doesn't understand. They can't comprehend that. They don't know. Okay? They don't know. But what Don does know is how he groomed her. And Jeannie was very specific in her statement to the authorities, because I know what it is. How he used the tickling game with her and would force her, okay, to how he would do whatever he did, okay? And I know some of this is heavy, so it's a trigger warning for everybody, okay? There is no 5-year-old on this earth that I've been investigating these guys for 40 years. I've said that before, and that's the truth. Okay? I've not met a 5-year-old that says, let me show you what to do. Okay? It doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. It does in the mind of the perpetrator because it's a fantasy. And what he's doing is he's revealing some of his fantasy. That's what he's saying here. But he's blaming Jeannie again. He keeps blaming her. Okay. Go ahead.
What's exactly the words? And then I was like, oh, well, okay. And then she stuck her hands down my pants and she was feeling my
By the way that he says that it is baffling. I mean,
well,
the way he just described that.
He's evil.
She stuck.
It's evil.
She stuck her hands down my pants and grabbed my blank. My S word is what he said.
It's evil.
That's how he relives that by saying that. That's a really sick thing to say. It doesn't sound remorseful either.
But I didn't know I was doing wrong,
But earlier before that, he said that he did, correct?
Yes. And he knew, quote unquote, that she was sexually active. Well, how do you know what sexually active means? What does that mean? Right? And if I ever get a chance to talk to Don, I'm going to ask him all these questions. Well, define what sexually active means. What does that mean for you with a 5-year-old? And you were 12 years old. What did it mean when she was 12 and you were 19? And for 7 years, Don molested her sometimes every single night. Every single night. Think about that. Do the math on that. For 7 years. If I were just to be conservative and say 10 months out of the year, okay? Just 10 months. This woman who is in her 40s now, right? Early 50s. I don't know how old she is. She's 7 years younger than, so she's 51. Okay? This woman, it's taken her 49 years to get the courage to pick up the phone and call TBI and say, I need to tell you something about Summer Wells. I've been molested by this guy since I was 5 years old. I'm worried about that little girl who's disappeared. And they said, what? And anybody that can't see a correlation here to that and supports him in relation to that, there are two different trains here. Summers disappeared, and Jeannie and Mary and others, total of 7, I keep reminding people, were victims of this guy that we know of. And he, independent of you, me, or anybody else, just gets out of jail, and what's the first thing he wants to talk about? Is Jeannie. You know why? Because he gets a thrill out of it. It's a charge for him. It's just even talking about it. He talks like he's defending himself. I would submit to you, he's actually talking about the fantasy that he's reliving in his mind. And I don't know what that means for Don. I don't know. I don't understand it with him. I understand him, but I don't know how it correlates yet to Summer. I just know for a fact that Summer was in danger with him in the environment. And I know go ahead.
No, go ahead. You know the thrill? Is that what you say?
Yes, he's living it.
Right.
In this conversation. But listen.
Yeah,
start again.
Guilty of doing the same thing.
And that's in reference to hands down pants.
Right.
But,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I want to hear what you said.
I was a teenager. I was young. I've learned a lot since then. I don't know. But it never went past anything like that.
Right.
And these people want to use the words and all kinds of crazy stuff. All I can say is I'm glad I got in trouble in Houston when I was 16 years old. I can't get no work around here.
Okay, stop.
Yep. That's the end of that's as much as I have laid out, but yeah.
Okay, all he is grateful for is he got in trouble when he was in Houston when he was 16 years old. Okay?
Yeah.
So basically what he's saying there is I'm glad the system stopped me because I was out of control.
It's like, what?
And here's another piece of this, right, that we always need to be cognizant of. When he got out of prison, the first night he came home, he went into Jeannie's room and started to essay her again. The very first night. And as a result of that, she, who is now 12 years old, fights him and runs into her parents' room and says, I can't do this. This has to end. Donnie has been molesting me since I was 5 years old. And he's threatened me. He said he would hurt me, blah, blah, blah. Well, what does Don Wells do? He runs out of the house. Her mother is like, what? And Donnie runs and hides. His father, his biological father, chases him down and gets him, brings him back to the house, and threatens the mother, Jeannie's mom, don't you dare press charges. Okay? My son is not going to prison. Okay? That's enabling behavior. The same behavior that has Don on their YouTube channel and they're kissing his rear. That's the exact same behavior. There's no difference. Okay? None. It's like handing an alcoholic a bottle of beer. And at that point, okay, Donnie realizes I'm busted. So let's think about how that behavior plays itself out years later. Remember when the task force went up on the property to get Don Wells, to capture Don Wells?
Yeah.
With the warrant? Okay. Remember what he did? He ran and he hid.
Didn't he hide in a shed or something?
Yeah, and they caught him. They busted him. Okay?
Yeah.
Don Wells has always been running from the truth and the reality of it. His verbal confessions here is symbolistic of running from the reality. What he has not anticipated is that when his 5-year-old daughter went missing, and whoever's involved in that, whatever that means, okay, it is not going away. This is something outside of his control. The authorities, FBI, TBI, Hawkins County, none of this is going away because Summer Wells is missing. And when that all comes together at some point, it will come together at some point. He's going to want these days back. He's going to want this opportunity to say, hey, I need to get ahead of this. I need to tell you what I know about this. I want to hear about the 7 alibis. I want to hear about Candace not having an alibi. I want to hear what he knows about Grandma. I want to hear what the phone call was when Candace called him that day and said, Summer's missing, get home. Right? I want to hear those conversations from him. Because he says, well, I'm not involved in the disappearance of my daughter. Okay, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. He's not involved.
Okay, sure.
And how does he qualify that? Is because Candace has said what happened. Candace has given him the narrative, and what he's doing is parroting the narrative.
Yeah, listen to this.
For one thing, I know she's innocent, you know, of everything, and I know how brokenhearted she is, and I know how much she loved her daughter. I mean, I'm not protecting her, like, trying to cover up for her, but I can't protect her.
I don't want nobody to protect me.
She's her own person, and I
can take care of myself.
I can't tell her who she can and can't talk to, just like she can't tell me who the hell I can talk to.
No, I sure ain't going to either.
You tried.
Just like when...
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the pressure of this, eventually those two will implode.
So you know, the one thing that he says there, how he knows that she is innocent of everything, whatever everything is, okay, which is an interesting way to phrase it, innocent of everything, is because she's heartbroken and she knows how much she loves Summer. That doesn't seem like quite enough. I don't think that would satisfy me. If Don truly doesn't know, and the only way that he believes that she's innocent is this.
For one thing, I know she's innocent, you know, of everything, and I know how brokenhearted she is, and I know how much she loved her daughter. I mean, I'm not protecting her, like, trying to cover up for her, but I can't protect her.
I don't want nobody to protect me.
So that's how he knows that she's, quote unquote, innocent of everything.
So let's go through that statement for a second. Back that up.
Sure.
Okay. And let's really listen to what he's saying.
All right.
Okay. For one thing. Okay. First of all, he starts off with, I'm gonna send you a message here. For one thing. Okay. So let's listen.
For one thing, I know she's innocent, you know, of everything.
Stop. Okay. For one thing, I know she's innocent. All right. Well, number one, okay, he's projecting that I know for a fact she's innocent. Okay, how do you know that? You were at work. So that's the first question. How do you know she's innocent? Because you said you were at work. So what he's basing that on then, the logic would be that she told him, I'm innocent. Okay. So does that mean there was a conversation of, did you do something? And she says, no, I didn't do anything. Okay, well then you're innocent. So I'm going to tell everybody you're innocent.
Yeah.
Okay, now keep going.
And I know how brokenhearted she is. I know how much she loved her daughter.
I know how much she loved her daughter, which we all know. Right, past tense. We got that. They got jammed up on that early in the very first company interviews. Remember, and they corrected themselves.
Yes.
Okay. Don learned. Remember, he learned. Okay. And then, so how much she loved her daughter. So now he's speaking for Candace. He's describing Candace's love for Summer. He's not describing his love for Summer. Okay? Not in that piece. So what he's doing is he's selling right now. Okay? He's selling. Okay, keep going.
I mean, I'm not protecting her, like, trying to cover up for her.
Stop. Nobody asked him if he was protecting or covering up for her. So why are you bringing it up? Why is it relevant? If she's not done anything, why are you bringing it into the conversation? Okay. You see, these are little subtleties in statement analysis that Steve Johnson would point out for you. And if you ever want to see a great breakdown, go watch his stuff that he did on Summer. Okay.
Let me play this for you really quick.
You're supposed to do. It's not about you. It's about Summer.
You know, I can tell. It's about you.
Oh, wow, bitch. I ain't gonna.
All right, then.
I went and handled your asshole, and I even protected your asshole.
You didn't protect me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, just don't go there. You know,
So, coupling that with him not.
Okay, I can't make that out very well.
Okay, let me
Josh.
tell you what it
I
said.
didn't.
He said that
Okay.
I even protected you. And he said, it's not about you, it's about Summer. She said, no, it's about me. And he said, oh, really? And she said, yeah. And she said, you didn't protect me from nothing. And he said, Candace, don't even go there. Don't even go there.
Wait, there you go. You've got some good stuff. This is awesome.
I got a whole
Yep.
soundboard full of these ridiculous statements. Okay.
For one thing, I know she's innocent, you know, of everything, and I know how brokenhearted she is.
So just coupling that, let's couple, that with this statement here.
I know how much.
This is from 2 weeks ago. That last clip was from probably, I don't know, about 14 months ago, I believe.
She loved her daughter. I mean, I'm not protecting her, like trying to cover up for her, but I can't protect her.
I don't want nobody to protect me.
She's her own person, and I
I
can't.
can take care of myself.
I can't tell her who she can or can't talk to, just like she can't tell me who the hell I can talk to.
No, I sure ain't going to either.
You tried.
Just like when
Yeah.
The reality of this, for listening to these statements, they're very interesting in the fact that they are now starting to fight even further among themselves. And this is what typically happens. At some point, one of them is going to get to a place where they say, okay, we better put the truth out here. I.e., one of them needs to get to the well before the cops and the investigation gets to a place that says, hey, there's more here. And so which one of you want to be first, through the door? Because it's an automatic door. You just step on the mat and the door opens. But if you keep jumping back and forth on both mats, eventually one of the doors, they're both going to open at the same time.
Right.
And it's too late. You're stuck. Okay. So the fact that he is now, saying, I'm not protecting her, but then on the other side, that other clip you just played, well, I protected you. That you see it's starting to unwind even more. And the children, thank goodness, kudos to CPS for engaging in this environment that these children were in. Okay. And, thank goodness. We can only pray that those children have been forensically interviewed and that the boys laid out what they may know, additional information, and or what's happened to them in the past. And that information then hopefully gets translated from the courts to the authorities. And I think Don is worried that the children aren't coming back because he knows that they've been saying stuff. The state of Tennessee, remember, is who took these children. It's the state of Tennessee took these children. Nobody, Don should be worried about, why did the state take my children? Not, I can't get a job right now. Okay.
Right.
And he should be worried about, look, I need to raise $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 to find my daughter. Okay. Not to get a lawyer to get my 3 boys back. I mean, yes, that's important. Of course it is. But he's not going to get those boys back yet. Because the state of Tennessee gave him they gave him goals. You have to hit these goals. And and because there's things that you're not doing as parents, okay? And as a result of that, if you don't hit these goals, sorry, the whole reason the courts are in place is to protect these children, the boys, as well as Summer. That's the whole reason. So for him to come out, get out of jail and start saying, I need $10,000 to get my boys back. Well, no, the state is saying, well, have you hit A, B, C, and D? And we don't know what those guidelines are because it's under a gag order. But I can assure you, and we can probably ask any one of your lab rats who's ever worked CPS, I can guarantee you that he's been given a program to follow, and they have not followed that program. So as a result of that, they're looking for results. And until they see those results, those children are in a very safe environment because the state of Tennessee does not feel that 110 Ben Hill Road is a safe environment for children. Let's not forget that piece of this puzzle. The state thinks, no, that house, not safe for children. We're keeping them. And it's been how long now? 18 months? Yep. 19 months?
It's going on 19 months.
There you go. So if Don wants those children back, he needs to change his life. And that's not coming up on YouTube and blaming his sexual assault victims as part of his narrative for feel sorry for me. Or having a fundraiser to get a lawyer. Well, all you have to do is walk into the court and say, I have no money. And the court will say, not a problem. Here's a lawyer.
Yeah. The other day he referred to it. He says, I need to, and this is just him being, Don, I need to hire a liar. That's what he called it. I need to hire a good liar.
Right.
I mean, everything's a game. Everything's a joke. Everything is, everything is just, just so arbitrary to him. He doesn't really, I don't know. He's very confident in himself, and he's just made these statements over the course of Summer going missing that they have no evidence. They have no evidence of anything.
Do you think you're going to be the person in the end that gets in trouble for Summer? Oh, it's very possible.
Okay, so then a few months later. So this is a few months later.
Do you think you're going to be the person in the end that...
And I ask him the exact same question.
Oh, it's very possible. Oh, yeah.
That they're going to, in your opinion, railroad you for this? Do you think that that's what's going to happen?
You can't do that with no evidence. That's impossible, bro. How can you do that?
I don't know. I don't know what evidence they have. I don't know.
They don't have no evidence, and there's no way they could ever have evidence because it's impossible.
Well, he's pretty confident.
That's a very interesting statement.
Well, he's confident.
He sure is.
Based on, he thinks there has to be evidence. Well, statements like that is evidence. Let's not forget that, Don.
Man.
Remember, I mean, if you ever right? You follow true crime. Everybody follows true crime here.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard, right? When you get an investigator on the stand, and they say, hey, did so and so say this to you? Absolutely. Or you get a witness on there. Hey, did so and so say this to you? Absolutely. Well, what did he say? Tell the jury. Well, he said there was no evidence. And what did he mean? Well, about the disappearance of his daughter. How did you take that? Yada yada. And you just go down that line forever. Okay. And so the fact that he thinks there's no evidence, I'm here to tell you, there's so much stuff behind the scenes that we don't know about. Just like we didn't know about in the Brian Korberger case. Okay. And all of a sudden they drop that affidavit on everybody and they go, holy crap. Okay. This potentially has the making of that type of moment, this case. And I agree with many other, people that have said they're waiting for CPS, to pull the trigger on some things. And because Sheriff Lawson gave us a little hint that there are lawyers involved on both sides of the coin, okay, when he mentioned that. But then he followed it up with, but the family's not cooperating with us. And what was ironic is Grandis calls a press conference and says, well, TBI has my number and we're cooperating 100%. Well, okay. So we have a house full of liars, or we have the authorities who are saying, no, they're not helping us. For one, I'm going with the authorities on this one.
Yeah. It's good.
That the sheriff
move.
that they're saying, look, there's a problem here, Houston, and we're losing air out of the Capitol.
Yeah.
and I think they're losing air out of the Capitol, and Don's running out of gas, and it's just a matter of time. And by the way, remember, always a 5-year-old case to convict is patience. Lots of patience. And let him run. Let him get out there and say whatever he wants to say. And then blame YouTube for saying it.
That's been his MO for a very long time. Chris, I really appreciate your time and you calling in and discussing this with me.
You bet.
It's always great to talk to you, and your insight is invaluable. And we'll get this packaged up and sent on over to the proper people that need to hear it.
Absolutely. And Don, if you're listening tonight, feel free to call into Josh anytime.
Please.
I know he'll talk to you.
I would love to.
And Lab Rats, have a good evening. Hit that subscribe button for Josh, please. And hit the thumbs up, everybody. Share this with everybody that you want to help Josh's channel. Our goal here this year is to get him to 100,000 subscribers. I want him to go past my channel. I really do. And anybody else that's connected with Josh is good people. So please hit that button. And it's good to see everybody. Justin, I see you're in here for all. Good to see you, buddy. And I'll let everybody have a good night and sign off here.
Thank you
so much.
Talk
to you later, Josh.
Bye, Chris.
Take
care. Well, there it is. Once again, thank you to the wonderful Chris McDonough for everything. And, you never know what's going to happen on the lab. This was very heavy. And I don't get nervous a lot, but I was a little jittery tonight. And maybe some of it was anger, maybe some of it was confusion, frustration. But I just wanted everybody to know who we're dealing with. I wanted to reintroduce you to Dawn.
Allow myself to introduce myself.
Allow me to reintroduce myself.
And he certainly did. Thank you. Appreciate you guys for being here.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not, really? It is to me.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
But I have to put her on the side and where I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
There is no investigation. This boy
There
has.
is not, really? It is to me. Right. Idiot.
I've done my best. It's hard, you know, that's real tough.
But I have to put her on the side and where I'm with the boys. I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
Live from the NBD Production Studios, you're in the lab with your host, Joshua Diaz.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not, really? It is to me.
But I have to put her on the side and where I'm with the boys. But I have to.
There is no investigation.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
But I have to put her. But I have to put her on the side and where I'm with the boys. I have nothing to hide at all. I don't lie. I can't lie. He's trying to say that he's the meteor for our family, but I don't. Well, why do you need a meteor for my family? Like, man, I'm not 150% of chance of anything doing with this. I don't know. I can't tell you because I don't know. I have a lot of suspicion. I have a problem with Allie, Jose, Jody Sue, Andy, Donnie. I mean, I could list a whole bunch of people.
She tends to, when she gets drunk and high at the same time.
Yep.
She tends to think that she loses the kids, but they're out front in the yard. That's what I was thinking.
Got it.
He's a lost cannon. He's a lost cannon.
Well, at first I thought, you know, it's got to be some sicko hillbilly druggie, you know, drug her out in the woods or, you know, or something, or somebody put her in her car and took her not too far away or whatever like that. But
You're supposed to, it's not about you, it's about someone. You don't have to do. It's about you. Oh, wow, bitch. Don't even go there. Alright, then. I went and handled your asshole, and I even protected your asshole. You didn't protect me. Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah, just don't go there. Don't even go there. Huh?
Do you think you're going to be the person in the end that gets in trouble for someone?
Oh, it's very possible, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That they're going to, in your opinion, railroad you for this? Do you think that that's what's going to happen?
You can't do that with no evidence. That's impossible, bro. How can you do that? You
Well, I
gotta
don't
have
know.
evidence.
I don't know what evidence they have. I don't know.
They don't
I would
have
just-
no evidence, and there's no way they could ever have evidence because it's impossible.